right now, right now it's about to get real interesting on this show. There was a time that Peter Burns was here, Raheel was here, and David was right here. And now Peter Burns is way up here. Raheel
way down here.
Wait a minute. That's just my hair. That's just my hair as I'm trying to get this done right. I mean, this thing, look at this coif right now. This is just, I mean, it's here in North Carolina, they haven't opened up anything, boys. And so like my haircut, like y'all's hair is here. My haircut is way, way down here. What's up, boys? I miss y'all.
What's up, man? Look at the volume in that hair. I like it. It looks.
I look like Jordan Rogers from The Bachelor at this point. That's what it looks like, to say the least. Yeah, crazy times, man. It's who would have thought in 2020, like it was everything that us three would be sitting here like, hey, we can't really go into studios, so let's just do a Zoom chat on in StreamYard on everything that's going on in the world of sports. It's just nuts right now.
This is so awkward, the pausing between us, so I apologize, Peter. But, man, we're so proud of what you've done, jealous, proud. And Raheel said this earlier before you got on the show. You're one of the happiest guys in sports media. Most people are bitter. Like, I have my bitter moments. I'm sure Heasy has. You seem like you still love this gig more than anything, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that's kind of how we all got into it, is like we all kind of got into, hey, it would be kind of cool to do this for a living. And then ultimately you get that opportunity. And it was shocking. I think we've all three of us have seen, like, there were people that were so jaded in the industry. And we're like, man, like every single day there's a ton of people that would want to do this. And I'm like, are you really going to complain about that? And it upset me because there were so many hardworking people that didn't get their opportunity, don't get their chance. And then you see some of these people who have elevated to these great levels that just kind of take it for granted and they complain about everything. And I'm like, man, you never know how life is going to bring, curveballs to you. And to me, I'm just like, even during all of this, like if the worst thing I do is be positive about something, then nobody's going to ever fault me, right? Like I'm going to go try to live the best life I can. And, it always seems like the people that complain, bitch and moan about stuff like that are honestly, those are the ones that it doesn't work out for. So if I'm going to go down, I might as well go down smiling. And that's, at least that's what I want now that I'm a dad and I'm getting no sleep. I want to make sure my kids are at least see, hey, dad's upset with me, but he still has this fake smile on his face. So he's doing all right.
And that's the thing where there was a time where you go, oh man, somebody famous is famous and they're standoffish, but a guy that changed it for me. Actually, there are two guys when you're talking about the world that we're in. One was Stuart Scott, obviously, rest in peace. He was one of the nicest guys. I had a chance to meet him when I was in college and could not have been nicer. And I was like, wow. I mean, like this guy is the most popular guy, the most famous guy in sports. Everybody knows Stuart Scott. And then the other one is Scott Van Pelt. And you see him every single night.
I was legit getting ready to say Van Pelt because Scott was one of those guys, like I would say something on Twitter, and this was before I worked for ESPN. He'd reach out and he would say, hey man, just like, I like what you're doing. I'm like, this is Scott Van Pelt. And, when I first moved up I first worked for ESPN, I went in and man, he could not have been any nicer. And even to this day, he just seems genuine. And I think we lose the genuine part in sports right now. But it's so funny you said Van Pelt. Who was it for you? I mean, was it anybody in particular or?
David, for you?
Yeah, John McClain for me. John McClain was the Houston Chronicle writer. He took me under his wing many, many years ago. He got me in front of Oliver Luck for my first job with the Sports Authority. He got me in front of the Rockets when Nelson Louise was their PR guy. He pushed me to the Granado family. Wendy Grau was my boss at ABC. John was my boss at 1560 and also did radio with him. John McClain did so much for my career. Just a wonderful man. And he would reach out to me, critique my work. And Bob Allen, too, the late, great Bob Allen. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be at Channel 13. Bob kind of handpicked me and really massaged my career to where it is now.
Speaking of John McClain real quick, so I ran into him. We were on a Super Bowl. This is when I was living in Denver, and we were going, I think it might have been for the New York City Super Bowl, and he was there, or one of the Super Bowls, and I saw him on the bus, and I was getting ready to go say hi to him, and I was a big fan because he seemed like the nicest teddy bear guy ever, and he was asleep on the bus, and I'm like, no, I missed my opportunity to talk to John McClain, the legend. So a shout out to Mr. McClain, who, and I think all of those, right? I think all of us, we're all in the same way that when people meet us, I mean, hell, we're just sports fans kind of, get an opportunity to do this. And so I think we'd like to think that we're pretty approachable at this point, maybe not with my hair being so jacked up right now, but we're good. So,
Peter, so before we get into college football and some of the big news coming out of the college football world, tell people about your journey real quickly, because, we've kind of hit on it. It's such a positive thing to put out there in terms of working hard, catching the break, being lucky, but at the same time, there is hard work behind this journey. Tell people about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I was working in the gas and oil industry right out of school in San Antonio, Texas. So, just down the road, and worked for El Paso Field Services. And I used to drive throughout South Texas all the time. I'd get bored. So I started listening to country music or sports talk radio, because I was sick and tired of country music. And I had all my rap cassettes, I think, back in the day, that my mixtapes, that I was sick and tired of listening to those. So, and ended up winning a contest to start hosting a show one day in Los Angeles. It was like an American Idol thing for Fox Sports Radio. Flew out there, did it, had a blast with Tony Bruno and Andrew Siciliano, who's now at the NFL Network. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I want to do this. So I went to the local sports station in San Antonio, said, I'll take any job you have. And they're like, well, we're not going to put you on air. We don't know who the hell you are. And I don't blame them. So they're like, here's a phone book. Here's a booth. Learn how to sell advertising. So I was like, okay, I had never sold anything in my life, but I learned. And so after about a year of that, they put me on a weekend show, which led to a weekday show and led to some other things. But in the middle of that, kind of right before that had started, I was married for 5 years, love of my life, never had an issue, never had a fight or anything. Went to cover the Super Bowl one year. We would do our broadcast from Las Vegas. I came home from Las Vegas. My house was empty, 100% empty. Like, no furniture, like dogs are gone, everything. No Dear John letter or anything like that. And come to find out, I was married to a girl who was the spokesperson for the Hooters Corporation. And at one point, she was just like, you know what? I just gonna live a different life. And never saw her once. I saw her once again the rest of my life. That was it. And so from that moment, I had this like chip on the shoulder of like, all right, well, I need to bounce back. Like, I can either wallow in this or I could use this as motivation. And ultimately I use that as motivation and started doing, more and more sports talk radio. And then at some point I had just gotten kind of too big for my britches, and then got real cocky because things were going really well in San Antonio, and they ended up firing me one day. And it was for my fault, guys. I was a complete, just the way I was. I got way too big for my britches, thinking my stuff didn't stink. And it was a good humbling moment, because then it realized, you're like, listen, man, like, no matter how much perceived fame you have right there, if you're not humble and treat people the right way, you're going to lose it all. And from that moment on, I'm just like, I'm going to smile. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to try to be humble. I'm trying not to take myself too seriously. And hopefully it's put me on the right track that led me to being able to talk to you guys today.
I just think your journey is amazing too, because you were just one day in Denver doing radio, and then I see on TV when the AT&T network launches. It's amazing. Take me through that whole ESPN process, like the audition, like, because that transition. I remember when I made the transition back to television from radio. It's not an on and off switch. Like there's a transition, and then for you to be able to perform at the highest level at the biggest sports network in the world, that had to be kind of intimidating. But you embraced it.
Yeah, it was crazy, because whenever I had never signed with an agent, because I had probably nobody ever wanted me, and I was kind of I had owned my own sports radio company in Denver, and when an agent saw me at the Super Bowl one year, he's like, hey, you want to do television? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do TV. And so sure enough, that ends up being the same agent that has, Bob Costas and Tirico. So they were a pretty big hitter, and they were looking for young up and coming talent. And so they originally called ESPN and said, hey, we're going to audition you for the SEC network. And I turned it down, because I'm like, listen, I'm going to make a complete, what of myself. Like, I've never read from a teleprompter. I've never done a highlight. I've never been on TV once before in my life. I'm not going to do it. So I hung up the phone, and my wife, she's like, you're the biggest idiot ever. Like, call them back immediately and tell them you will do the interview. I don't care if they laugh you out of the building, go do it. So of course I called the agent back, and he's like, yeah, I figured you would rethink this, and went up to the interview. And I remember profusely apologizing the entire time right before I did the audition. I think everybody walked into the audition and be like, I'm so-and-so from this market. I'm so-and-so here. I'm going to do great. And I was the only person that'd be like, listen, I know y'all aren't going to hire me, but I'm just going to have a fun time doing this interview, and it'll be a cool story to tell. And I think maybe that helped. And it's different because you guys know in radio, you're long-winded, you're giving opinion. My opinion, my role now in television is more of, the John Stockton, right? Like you're more of a point guard getting it to everybody else as opposed to giving your opinion. So, and I still do my Sirius XM radio show and an ESPN radio show as well. So it's tough sometimes to realize, all right, on TV, you're the anchor and nobody gives a blank about what you say. It's what the professionals say. But on radio, don't be an anchor, be an opinionated person. So sometimes that gets me in a little bit of trouble, but I try not to. I'm still employed for now, at least. So,
all right, let's get your opinion on this. This is a question I threw out that I think teams should consider. I know there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot to be determined yet about the upcoming college football season. But the question I put out was, and this is regarding our two schools, because I love Texas, you love LSU. There's a big game scheduled at LSU. It's going to be, look, that game is for the fans. I get it. It's for recruiting and for season and what it means for the season. But should teams, if college football comes back with no fans, should they consider moving a big out-of-conference game to another year?
It's crazy because we would have never thought that. And I will tell you this, I've talked to some athletic directors that they are looking at every option right now, not just specifically for that game, but whether it's rescheduling these games and hey, do you go to a venue in which more, in one state that doesn't have as much of an outbreak. And so that's not specific to LSU or Texas. All of it's being looked at right now. And I think right now, as we sit here on in late May, we've got a 3-week window, where all of that is being decided right now. They're looking at facilities. They're looking at what their guidelines are going to be. They're looking at if they're phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. They're looking at a lot of the economics of it as well, too, because, think about it. Whenever, the reason why there's so many of these games at these neutral sites, because both of these teams make a boatload of money, right? In ticket sales and whatnot. But not being able to have fans, that changes everything. I know that I've talked to LSU people, would be highly upset if they don't have, a bunch of fans in that stadium, because that's part of the environment that made Texas such a hard place to play when LSU went there last year. And that's arguably what gives LSU one of the biggest advantages in college football, is having 100,000 in Tiger Stadium. So again, it stinks that I don't have a better answer for that. But they're looking at any and all opportunities right now. And I would, as a fan, I'd be okay with if they ended up punting it for a year, just because I want to see I want to see these big marquee events happen with back to normal 100,000 fans in a stadium. And I don't think you're going to get that this fall.
Peter, I asked Raheel this, and I knew his answer before I asked him. I'm going to ask you, who is the best Texas college football team?
Best Texas college football team. So not just Texas. So you're not talking just Longhorns. You're talking about any Texas.
I'm hoping you don't say the Longhorns. That's what I'm hoping. Anybody but the Longhorns.
And you said college, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I was going to go Dylan. From Friday Night Lights. The Dylan Panthers back in the day were pretty awesome before they had to split into two.
Their rebuild has been horrible, though. Look, Dylan has really fallen off lately.
It was difficult. It was difficult to watch. You know what it is? Because Tyra ended up moving out, and once Tyra moved, the whole heartbeat of that whole community changed. Gosh, if I go Texas. I was just thinking about that a couple of days ago, because I was there watching Ricky Williams break the rushing record when they played A&M way back in the day. I don't know if those teams were good. I guess it's got to be the Vince Young championship team that was that good. I mean, I feel like
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm talking this year. But yes, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about overall.
But you're right. That hurts me to say that team was amazing. Maybe the best victory we've ever seen. But yes, right now.
I mean, well, there's no doubt about it. It's Texas A&M at that point. I mean, it is.
Oh, come on, dude.
It's Texas A&M. Listen, they had 19 true freshmen play last year. They got 17 starters returning. They got Kellen Mond, who I think is going to take a leap under Jimbo. And when I talked to Jimbo earlier, he was like, "Listen, y'all don't understand. Like last year was the best thing that could have happened for us." I'm paraphrasing here, but they played an unbelievable schedule, having to play Clemson, having to play. I think they played Georgia as well. There's their cross divisional rival or in that game, and they just had an unbelievably tough schedule. And so for them to have all those guys kind of trial by fire to get ready to go, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they compete for the West this year. Because I think the SEC is as wide open as it's maybe ever been in the last decade. I think Florida can win it. I think Georgia can win it. I think A&M can win it. I think LSU can still win it, and Alabama. And very rarely in college football now, in a sport of one percenters, do you think that 5 teams could actually win the conference? And I'd even put Auburn in, who might have an outside shot as well. But sorry, Raheel, I'm going with David here, and I'm going gig 'em.
And I laid out Texas for me, because of the schedule, because of Sam in his final year. You've got talent across the board now. You've got a great running back coming in. I mean, this is the best breakdown in terms of what the schedule is going to look like, returning talent as well. A team that's been in big games as well. A&M's not far behind, but again, because you're in the SEC, Alabama at Alabama this year, LSU at home, so that does help in terms of the schedule. But you've got so many wild cards in the other teams in the SEC, as you mentioned. There are a lot of teams that this year could make a run for it, and it's going to be a little bit harder. It's always harder in the SEC.
Well, and that's the whole deal, because you don't compare apples to apples at that point, right? Because I think, if you're looking at the Big 12 this year, you're looking at Texas, you're looking at Oklahoma. I mean, I like what Matt Campbell's doing at Iowa State. Baylor's obviously going to have a change with Dave Aranda there. I don't think they'll have the same success as they did last year. TCU. Okay, but
Oklahoma
to me,
State is good this year. They're bringing back a lot of talent as well.
But you still only look at probably 3 contenders.
Yeah.
And they don't have to run. I mean, the SEC West, guys, is just ridiculous. I mean, it's out of control. And then, oh, by the way, one of the reasons why I was late to our call today is I was just on the phone with Mike Leach. We were doing an interview for SEC Network, and what Leach is going to bring. And then you got Lane Kiffin as well, too. So, again, we need a 10-part Last Dance documentary on just the characters of the SEC West right now. I'd be all in on something like that, because Leach is such a weird cat. If you guys ever get a chance to interview him, you never know what direction he's going to go in. I had all these football questions, and we ended up talking about his first car and why he takes his bike to Publix each day, and sometimes he grabs too much groceries, so he has to call a cab, and sometimes the cab can't get his bike there. And I'm like, oh my, it's nuts.
Dude, that is crazy. He's such an interesting character. And I know you have to get going, so let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
With everything, as you said, there's a 3-week window with all the ADs. Everyone's trying to figure things out. And look, it's still a long time away. You've got June, July, August to figure stuff out. 3 months left in terms of the decision that needs to be made and all that. Should college football even come back this year?
I think it has to come back. I think if you look at the financial parts of just how it funds all the athletic departments, right? And it's not just football itself as a whole, but we're talking baseball, softball, swimming and diving, tennis, men's and women's golf. It's the lifeblood of that. So I think with proper safety protocols, I do think it will come back. It needs to, but I also think there needs to be at some point some honest conversations after this, guys, of saying, all right, how are we going to make sure this never happens again, that all our eggs are in a college football basket where it's bringing in 90%? And there's going to have to be some tough conversations on how do we structure our athletic departments and frankly our universities for it to be economical for students and still successful for athletic departments. If not, you could see a major shrinkage, and we may not have 100 and some odd Division I teams. You may end up going down to 60 to 70. And I think college football may look vastly different. I thought by 2025, I think maybe now it might be, expedited a little bit.
That's Peter Burns, SEC Network. Peter, we appreciate you. We don't talk to you enough, man, but proud of all the work you do. And you've always been so gracious coming on with us from back in the day in Denver to now. So we appreciate your time, man.
I got to be honest with you, David. I'm just hoping to make it up in my life to where I can afford some nice furniture in the background like you have. Like, that's the one I know, wow, man, that is some rich mahogany, Ron Burgundy stuff right there, to say the least. So
I've got to tell you this, Peter. You have kids now, so you understand. I have 4 kids at home. Every day that we do this show, I have to find a new area that's quiet and the lighting is good. Like, there's no area that's safe in this house. So, like, I'm currently in my bedroom, hidden so you can't see my bed. All you can see is this thing behind me.
You see, I have figured it out. The reason why I'm trying to stay long with you guys, the reason why you're doing all this stuff too, is because at least now you can tell the wife and all the kids, hey, daddy has to work. Because I'm definitely afraid as soon as I hang this up, what's going to happen with my 2 kids. So, hey, if we need to do this every stinking day for like 5 hours a day, just y'all give me a call. But miss you boys. Love to see you guys, and let's do it again soon.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
All right. Later, boys.